U.S. President Donald Trump delivered a fiery speech at the United Nations General Assembly. He began by criticizing the United Nations itself, saying the world body has often failed to solve global problems and, in his words, has even quote-unquote funded assaults on Western borders. Yet, he added that the United Nations still holds quote-unquote tremendous potential if its members are willing to use it effectively. Migration was at the center of his address. Donald Trump called uncontrolled migration the top issue of our time. He accused the United Nations of fueling the crisis instead of stopping it and warned that Europe has been invaded by illegal migrants like the world has never seen before. He even added that European leaders are paralyzed by political correctness and are failing to protect their own countries.
Your countries are being ruined. The United Nations is funding an assault on Western countries and their borders. In 2024, the UN budgeted $372 million in cash assistance to support an estimated 624,000 migrants journeying into the United States. Think of that. The UN is supporting people that are illegally coming into the United States, and then we have to get them out. The UN also provided food, shelter, transportation, and debit cards to illegal aliens. Can you believe that? On the way to infiltrate our southern border. Millions of people came through that southern border. Just a year ago, millions and millions of people were pouring in, 25 million altogether over the 4 years of the incompetent Biden administration. And now we have it stopped, totally stopped. In fact, they're not even coming anymore because they know they can't get through. But what took place is totally unacceptable. The UN is supposed to stop invasions, not create them and not finance them. In the United States, we reject the idea that mass numbers of people from foreign lands can be permitted to travel halfway around the world, trample our borders, violate our sovereignty, cause unmitigated crime, and deplete our social safety net. We have reasserted that America belongs to the American people, and I encourage all countries to take their own stand in defense of their citizens as well.
The U.S. president further doubled down on his long-held skepticism over climate change. He dismissed it as quote-unquote the greatest con job ever, saying global warming, cooling or climate change, all of it was nothing more than a scam.
Carbon footprint. It's a con job. At extreme cost and expense, Europe reduced its own carbon footprint by 37%. Think of that. Congratulations, Europe. Great job. You cost yourself a lot of jobs, a lot of factories closed, but you reduced the carbon footprint by 37%. However, for all of that sacrifice and much more, it's been totally wiped out and then some by a global increase of 54%. Much of it coming from China and other countries that are thriving around China, which now produces more CO2 than all the other developed nations in the world. So all of these countries are working so hard on the carbon footprint, which is nonsense, by the way. It's nonsense.
On Russia, Donald Trump said the war in Ukraine was, quote-unquote, not making Russia look good. He criticized both China and India as well for buying Russian oil and faulted NATO countries as well for continuing to rely on Russian energy supplies despite the ongoing conflict. Donald Trump also made a bold claim that in just 7 months of his presidency, his administration had ended 7 unendable wars. Without offering details, he pointed to regions like Pakistan and India, where he said Washington has worked to reduce tensions.
China and India are the primary funders of the ongoing war by continuing to purchase Russian oil. But inexcusably, even NATO countries have not cut off much Russian energy and Russian energy products, which, as you know, I found out about 2 weeks ago, and I wasn't happy. Think of it. They're funding the war against themselves. Who the hell ever heard of that one? In the event that Russia is not ready to make a deal to end the war, then the United States is fully prepared to impose a very strong round of powerful tariffs, which would stop the bloodshed, I believe, very quickly. But for those tariffs to be effective, European nations, all of you are gathered here right now, would have to join us in adopting the exact same measures. I mean, you're much closer to this. We have an ocean in between. You're right there. And Europe has to step it up. They can't be doing what they're doing. They're buying oil and gas from Russia while they're fighting Russia. I ended 7 wars, dealt with the leaders of each and every one of these countries, and never even received a phone call from the United Nations offering to help in finalizing the deal. All I got from the United Nations was an escalator that on the way up stopped right in the middle. If the First Lady wasn't in great shape, she would have fallen. But she's in great shape. We're both in good shape. We both stood. And then a teleprompter that didn't work. These are the 2 things I got from the United Nations, a bad escalator and a bad teleprompter.